Hey everybody, welcome to the Horror Slash Show. I'm Jason Pellegro, pumped to be with you today. Thanks for joining us. We have a really special treat for you today from the original 1974 classic, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. We have Teri McMinn, the Hook Girl. Yes, the original hung on a meat hook girl, and we're pumped for this interview. Obviously, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is one of the classic horror films of all time. But more than that, the stories of the making of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre are almost as famous as the film itself. Definitely infamous. So we can't wait to talk about that. We're going to get into the nitty gritty of the production. And of course, later on in the show, we have Sassy Sledgehammer coming on. Can't wait for that. She's always awesome, and we always love talking with her. Just a disclaimer. Teri asked for this interview to not be a video, so it is an audio video, and that's something I just don't do. But because she is part of an iconic film, and I just adore this film so much, and I really wanted to speak with her, I definitely capitulated, and happily, because I'm pumped. Regardless, we don't have to see her to love her. Let's bring her on right now from the 1974 classic Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Teri McMinn.
And how are you?
I'm good. So thank you for doing the show. We're really happy to have you on here. Needless to say, you're part of a kind of popular movie, can we say? It's done well over the years, but this is probably a busy time for you, is it not? Do you do a lot of stuff around this time of year?
Well, I haven't been going to any conventions for the past 2 years.
Oh,
so just in the last 2 weeks, I went to a couple. I went to one in Fort Wayne, and anyway, then last weekend, John and I went to Dark History in Champaign, Illinois, and I posted pictures on Pam, the original Chainsaw Gal's page. Nice. And people are still sending them in. And I just got 2 guys that messaged me, one from Cardiff and another guy from Brooklyn and somebody else. Anyway, they said, "Can you come back to Cardiff?"
It's a big ask.
We'll tell you promoters and post on my page, and I'll tag my agents.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's the way. They don't get that. That's how it works.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's great to have you, and I want to. In our time together, I want to talk obviously about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I'm sure it's a film that you've been asked a million times about, but I'm sure you understand why. I want to start with the audition. How did the audition come your way?
I was doing plays at a place called St. Edward's University, Mary Moody Northern Theater. It was a beautiful stage in the round, and in Austin. Mm-hmm. And it's at St. Edward's University. So I was there, and we were doing a play with Frank Sutton, and they put the Austin American Statesman did an article on the play and on Frank Sutton, Gomer Pyle's sergeant, and he was, visiting. So they had my picture in the newspaper, and Kim and Toby saw my picture, and then they called my theater director, Ed Mangum, and he told me that some guys were doing a horror film and they wanted to audition me. And, it was a scab film, meaning it was non-union, which nobody did those really. You avoided those if you could. And horror wasn't really a genre at that time. It was, it just wasn't. Yeah. And it was always considered B movies. A lot of times it was considered just above softcore porn, So anyway, a friend said, go and audition. So I went and auditioned, and the next day I was saying, God, I don't know if I want to do this. And my friend said, Teri, come on, go for it.
Yeah.
So I said, call them and tell them that you want to, do their film. So I called and I spoke with Kim Hinkle, the writer and producer. And he said, okay, Teri, he said, well, come over tonight and wear some short shorts.
The
Yeah,
70s.
well, red flags, I was the
Mhm.
one that was, I didn't have an agent. I was, I
Yeah.
was totally out on my own, flying by the seat of my pants.
Mhm.
And so I rode my bike. I put on my little white shorts with little flowers going up the side and a pink stretch top. And I put on my sandals and I rode the 10 or 12 blocks over to where they were doing the auditioning. And it
Mhm.
was an apartment that John Dugan, who played Grandpa,
Mhm.
and Lou Perryman, who was our assistant, our AD, assistant to the DP.
Mhm.
And they were sharing the apartment. And the director and Kim were there. And so they had me read
Mhm.
again. And afterward, they asked me if I would like to do the part of Pam.
On the spot.
Yep, yep,
Nice.
on the spot. I was trying to remember if they called me the next day, but they didn't. They just asked me right then and there if I
Mhm.
wanted to do it. And they'd already been to Dallas, to SMU, to
Oh
their
wow.
drama department, and they had been to Houston, to the University of Houston. And so they'd seen that
Yeah.
I'm told, around 500, other young women.
Wow.
And so it was quite it turned out to be
Yeah.
quite a good thing.
Yeah. What
But
an
at the
honor.
time,
Yeah,
well,
you
it
were
took
unsure.
10 years. And
Yeah.
as you well know, it was banned,
Yeah.
across Europe
Mhm.
for 10 years and
Yeah.
in every country,
With
and
with
25 years in the UK.
with the what was your so when you finally get the script, what was your honest first impression of the script?
I really couldn't wrap my mind around it at
No.
all. It
Yeah.
was so bizarre. Um, chainsaws, crazy family. It was really, really hard to get my mind around it.
Mhm.
And I must tell you that Toby is not the most, he's not an actor's director,
Mhm.
um, at all. He was
Yeah.
not at all. And
It's more tech.
so we were together trying to come up with things. Like Bill Vale and I put together our past history.
Mhm.
Everybody was a serious actor that was in it, except for Gunnar. Really,
Yeah.
Gunnar was a writer, but they saw him from across the street, and he was so big
Mhm.
that they just said, "Okay, that's him." So, and a lot of people don't know that Gunnar was my ex-boyfriend's roommate, and he and
Oh.
I hated each other.
Oh,
We
really?
because George, had a wandering eye anyway, and we were supposedly exclusive, but we kind of broke off. We'd been together about 4 months, and then he met Gunnar on campus at UT, and they got a house together.
Hmm.
And so Gunnar was always trying to get George off, away from me, and they would,
Oh.
go out and look for chicks.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And
So,
so, we just did not care for one another. And the first day that we were on set going to sign our contracts in the RV, Kim called me to come into the RV, and he said, "Hey, I want you to meet Leatherface." So I walked down the long aisle toward this banquette where there was this big man with brown hair, curly hair, with his back to me, and I got up beside him, and he was as tall sitting down as I was standing up. And we both looked at one another and jumped back and said, "What are you doing here?"
Oh my gosh.
We were both really.
That's hilarious.
But we kicked heels and had coffee, and it
oh,
turned out
awesome.
that George owed him money. So
That's great. That's a great story. Oh my gosh.
Mhm.
So you're reading the script and you can't wrap your head around it, but you're still doing the film. What are your thoughts when you're reading that you're going to be hung on a meat hook? Or was that in the original script?
Yeah, it's in the original script. Like I said, the script, it just didn't give you a lot, and the
Mm,
director didn't give you a lot,
yeah.
and they were off on their own, and it wasn't an actor's set.
Hmm.
It wasn't that way.
Yeah.
So not until I did my scenes alone with Gunnar, running from him in the
Hmm.
chicken room, in the house, um, then that was a lot of fun
Hmm.
because, you know, I was really getting to use any acting ability I
Yeah.
had and any experience I had. And also, Gunnar was very easy to work with. Those scenes took about 8 hours running from him and the, chicken room and all
Yeah.
that. Probably took, we were losing light. I couldn't scream anymore. I'd lost my voice. I've been fighting a 300-pound man for my life the
Yeah.
entire day. It's not easy.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
so, um,
How long was it to shoot the duration of you in the bone room and the meat hook? Like I'm assuming you
well, the
shot that
meat
in
hook
succession.
we did on a separate day.
Oh, okay.
And for one thing, I can't remember. We could ask Chase Anderson, who runs the Facebook chainsaw um, page and also the website.
Hmm.
They've put together a great website, and Kim has been doing everything he can to, we really got screwed out of a lot of, we signed
Yeah.
contracts for deferred money. So
Yeah.
anyway, now that Kim is in charge of everything, since the passing of the director,
Hmm.
we are enjoying, profits from merchandising,
That's great.
which I'm so grateful for. At
Yeah.
70
Yeah.
years old, we need it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I give Kim Hinkle full credit for
That's
really
great.
doing everything he can to help us. And Chase runs that page, and he knows what day we filmed everything. But in answer to your question, sorry to take a while to get there,
No, no problem.
but it took us we started probably around 8:30 or 9 in the morning, a lot of discussion.
Hmm.
Dottie had sewn the chastity belt like thing that went under my red shorts, a lot of padding in the crotch, made of parachute strapping
Hmm.
with a steel, alloy steel hook ring, ring
Yeah.
that I was spotted by the director. He was underneath while Leatherface Gunner was putting me on the meat hook. And so they made sure that the ring went over the hook instead of into my back. And honestly, someone had put a meme on that I had gone through great pain. That my the gadget that I wore was painful, and I, suffered greatly, and just a pile of horse hooey.
Really?
And I corrected her on very sweetly. I said,
Hmm.
"Look, thanks for the mention, but let me just say, it was a not very attractive, but extremely durable basic chastity belt made of parachute strapping."
Yeah.
And there was more talking and planning and deciding what we were going to do than there was hanging.
Hmm.
So, I had it. I knew Toby had asked me the day before, what do you think you're going to do, Terry? And I said, well, you know, I think that if the meat hook doesn't get me in that portion of my back on the spine and I'm able to move, I would try and get off. You know, that would be my first thought. And so he said, yeah, go with that. Yeah, yeah. So we knew what we were going to do, you know, and I knew, I thought about it, of course, the whole night. And I would say that it took us 3 hours, and including the scanning of me on the buckets. The only time you see real blood in the film is when it scans down for 4 seconds and to the bucket that is beneath me. And when the director called the final cut, I looked up and the entire cast and crew were lined up watching, and you could hear a pin drop. People were terribly moved, and I was kind of, you know, out of my element. And I thought to myself, gee, it's like we really have something now. I feel, you know, I think everyone kind of felt that at that moment. And so that was good.
Yeah. Well, I gotta say, this was one thing that I'm really grateful to actually talk to you about is your acting in that scene is some of my favorite in all of horror. Like when you get hooked onto the onto the hook, your reaction, your body reaction, your facial reaction, and your voice, it's to me, I've never seen someone get hung on a meat hook before. So I don't know, but I'm pretty sure you nailed it. I can't compliment you enough for that. And I mean, it doesn't sound like you got a lot of direction, so it sounds like it's all you. So yeah, just congrats on that, because I think you nailed it.
Thank you so. Well, I had been studying since I was about 13, and my childhood was spent watching movies. There was a morning movie, an afternoon movie, and a late night movie. And, you know, for some reason, I was allowed to stay up and watch the late night even. So, you know, I had done my share of, you know, I had favorite Betty Davis, favorite women, you know, that I had watched. And so I had studied a lot. I'd worked at the Dallas Theater Center my first year out of high school on scholarship to go to another college. So,
Yeah.
you know, it wasn't like I hadn't done that. But what was difficult is that you couldn't get response, basically. I mean, you couldn't get, hey, great job, or, you know, wow, you nailed it, Terry. You know, nothing, it wasn't like that. And so
that's a shame.
Yeah. And then they got in the way of me getting my equity card, which I was doing play at night with Peter Breck from the Big Valley. I was doing Lizzie and the Rainmaker and getting my own standing ovations, and he wanted me to go to Lubbock. And I negotiated my own deal, and usually you got 150 a week for those kind of things, actors equity. And I negotiated 600 a week, and Peter nearly fell out of his chair when I told him. He said, "Are you kidding me?" And I said, "Well, that's what he said he'd pay me." But anyway, they had one day of pickup scenes they needed to do after I'd finished filming all of my scenes. And then they had to do the dinner scenes and all the other stuff. And so for, you know, in that 2 weeks, I nailed that gig. And when I called in, I said, "Okay, so what day do you need me to do the pickup shots?" And they said, "We don't know." And I said, "Well, I need to know the day because I've got this great offer, you know." And instead of saying, "Gee, Terry, that's great. You kidding? We're really proud of you."
Yeah.
No, they didn't say that. They said,
No.
"Well, you signed a fucking contract, so you'll be there." And
Wow.
it was awful. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That picture of me on Wikipedia where I've got my hands in
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
that's that day. And
Oh,
Sally, the assistant to the director, was also our still photographer, and she knew what was going on, and she felt awful about it because all they did was an audio of me saying, "Let's go," and throwing the tooth down. That's it.
Really?
How many times when I walked up to that house in that famous tracking shot, do you hear me say, Kirk, let's go? I said it so many times. And we filmed it for hours. And I said, can't you give me any more lines than let's go?
Yeah, you're there.
So that day, Sally said, Teri, look over here. And I looked to my left and she snapped that picture. I never saw that picture for 35 years until 2008, when I was coming out for the first time and did the interview on the Blu-ray version in 2008.
What a great story.
People said, hey, Teri, you're on Wikipedia. And I said, oh, sure. You've got to be kidding. That can't be. I couldn't imagine why people wanted to talk to me. I snuck onto YouTube because I was so non-savvy about the internet. I was afraid someone could see me watching myself.
Oh.
and I would be embarrassed. So I watched the scenes of me running and Gunner and all that. I watched it once and then I watched it again. And I went, geez, Teri, you weren't that bad. And I watched it again and I went, damn, Teri.
And
I watched it again and I went, Jesus Christ, girl, you've been beating yourself up for 35 years and you did a good job.
Yeah. And you finally came around to what all your fans were thinking, right? And actually, we're going to talk about that in a second. But I want to ask you, a lot of, there's always a lot of talk about how horrendous this shoot was for a lot of people. And a lot of it had to do with the dinner scene. But was it as terrible for you during the production of this film, or was it more stuff that you weren't involved in, aside from not getting the direction you wanted or the validation you wanted?
Yeah, that part was really annoying. That I mean, I can't tell you that wasn't annoying. However, the scene when I kicked the bucket in the room was difficult because Toby made me redo that 13 times and it kept cutting my leg. It was a galvanized bucket with a steel edge, and so it hit my shin in the same spot every freaking time I had to do it. Okay, let's reshoot, 13 times. And my shin was bleeding by the end of that. He just was a very out of touch with other people or misogynist. I'm not sure.
Well, that's the story about Texas Chainsaw Massacre. There's no blood in the film, but there's blood making the film, and it's literally blood making the film between you and Marilyn. And
Marilyn really had it rough. The other time it was rough was we had to shoot those van scenes for 3.5 days. On the 0.5 day, the hitchhiker came on. And when you're shooting those, you're in 95 to 100 degree weather in the sun because they don't want clouds. And so, but you have to have the windows up and there could be no air conditioner on because of sound. And inside you have Pam and Kirk, Jerry and Sally and Paul, Franklin. And in addition, you have the director, Ted Nikolai, the sound man, or Wayne, I can't remember, but I think it was Ted, and Danny Pearl, the cinematographer. And so, you've got 8 people sweating. So I have somebody sent me a thing where I'm holding up the placard, to open the scene. In the van, and it's on it's Pam's, actually it's her cover picture right now, and my cheeks are really pink. And I know, but I had the coolest costume, you have to admit,
Oh no, definitely. Okay, so a lot of the talk about some of the nightmares of making the film. It sounds like you kind of escaped most of it, but was it fun? Was it a fun shoot at all for you?
Yes, and I hear people complaining and bitching. We were we were 20 years old, 21. I think Gunnar might have been the oldest at 25, and
Yeah.
Kobe and Kim the same age. But I mean, we were acting. I was acting from morning until night, and then I'd go to the theater and do Lizzie on stage for 3 hours with Peter Breck, who was wonderful. It was cast beautifully and
Yeah.
directed beautifully. So I had an actor's dream. I was, filming by day, doing
Yeah.
lead on stage at night, getting standing ovations. What is so horrible? Um, and I have heard all those, oh, it was so horrible. And it didn't get horrible for me until they said you signed a fucking contract
Yeah.
and wouldn't let me go on. I had lost my waitressing job when we signed on to do the second, they ran out of money after the first 2 weeks.
Hmm.
And so after that 2 weeks, they couldn't cover me. And I'd been working that gig for a year and a half, 2 years. And it was my job. It paid for my school, it paid for my
Hmm.
food, it paid for everything.
Yeah.
And I got, paid for the first 2 weeks, but then there was no more money. So you try paying rent and
Yeah.
buying food and gasoline, you
Yeah.
know, with
Yeah.
no money.
Yeah.
So that was when it got rough for me.
Hmm.
But then I got cast in a show with Andy Devine. Um, Awful. I mean, I hated the show. It was after getting to do Lizzie and the Rainmaker, and with a great cast and everything. It was just a ooh, awful script and a stupid part of a hippie girl, and you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
So, and then I wasn't invited to the premiere.
Yeah. I guess they probably didn't have a lot of money to kind of even reach out to
I was
anybody.
only in Dallas. I was only
Yeah. So that's
100
another
miles
slap on the
away.
face.
Give me a break,
Yeah, exactly.
give me
Exactly.
a
That's
break.
true. If
Yeah,
it
yeah. I mean, they could have come to get me if they'd
yeah,
wanted.
exactly. No.
So,
That's unfortunate too.
so yeah. Well, how would you feel?
No, no, absolutely. And it's
You
funny
might not like it either.
so I've directed some short films and stuff like that, and I'm the total opposite. Like, I'm so into the actors. I'm like all about the actors. So when I hear that, I just don't understand how people how a filmmaker can be that way, right? How they could be just more technically minded and just and not pay attention to the performances and the feelings, the validation that's required and all that stuff. It's so hard for me to comprehend. So when you're kind of saying that, I'm sympathizing so much, even though I've never acted before. So
Well, I think that there had to have been some drugs going on or something,
yeah.
because you aren't that remote from people normally. And
Yeah.
so I really don't know, but I can tell you that the way I heard that the movie was even being released, I moved to Dallas in December, right after we'd filmed. Basically, I got through September, October, and November.
Mhm.
And by that time, I said, okay, I'm going to go to Dallas and find work. So I went and I got waitressing gigs. And I told a bartender that I worked with that I had filmed this horror movie with chainsaws and meat hooks and blah, 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 blah. And so one night I came to work and I went up to Mike and I said, hey, Mike, I need 2 scotch and sodas. And he said, hey, didn't you tell me you were in some movie with the chainsaws and all that? I said, yeah. He said, well, you're in all their commercials. It's out. It was Halloween '74. And
Wow.
I said, no kidding. I said, nah, I'm not the female lead. I'm the second lead. So they wouldn't have used me in all their commercials, no
Yeah.
way. And he said, Teri,
That's funny.
you're in all their commercials, all their trailers. And I, finally saw it and I went, Jesus Christ, they
That's
did
awesome.
use me. I can't believe it.
Yeah. Well,
And they used my birthday. John
I
Larroquette is on August 18th.
I was gonna ask you about that. Was that like because of you, or was it just coincidental?
If you ever find out, please let me know.
Okay, I will.
I
I
have,
will, because
I have no idea.
it's kind of like known as, like, thanks to social media, it's kind of known as Texas Chainsaw Massacre Day, and I was like, wow, and it's your birthday, so how amazing is that?
How amazing is that?
Yeah, very serendipitous,
It's
for
it's
sure.
amazing.
What was your
Okay, more questions.
Okay, what was your what was your relationship with Marilyn on set?
She was rather remote too.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, she was sweet and all that, but she was a bit remote also.
yeah,
Um, so, we got along fine. Um, everybody, all the actors got along fine.
yeah.
Alan just called me yesterday. I mean, we've remained friends,
That's great.
over the years. I even ran his B&B for a couple of weeks when he lost his manager.
Wow,
So that,
that's great.
and yeah.
That's great.
So
So, but
mhm.
on the set, you guys were just pretty much, working, and but since then, I guess some of the relationships have
Yeah,
lasted,
I
and
mean,
some
she
of them,
helped me with my makeup. She was
yeah,
always, big on us getting our makeup right
yeah,
um, and all that. And Bill and I hung around a lot together
yeah,
because we wanted to put together our story and because we got
mm,
along.
yeah.
So we hung out. We were buddies, and we basically the swing was up on the porch until they moved it out into the yard.
Hmm.
And so we'd rotate. We had a couple of chairs, and then we had the swing and the steps. So we would rotate.
Yeah,
There were a lot of hours spent waiting for clouds to pass
yeah.
and waiting for them to set up.
So, I mean, I don't think I need to tell you this, but I mean, the meat hook girl of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre is pretty iconic. I mean, we're not talking horror films. I mean, we're talking just in the images of cinema, and you're front and center in that image, in that scene, and what it means to film. And does that make you proud? Does it trip you out? Like, what are your emotions with that?
Oh, I've just had a good time with it. The first thing when I came out in 2008 for the first time,
Hmm.
um, it was about losing your anonymity
Hmm.
because over the years, like if people would find out that I had been in it and they'd get mad at me. Like, why didn't you tell me you were in this? I had a lawyer's office that I would always bring their flowers on a weekly basis when I had my flower business in Austin. And years later, from 1990 until 2003. And one day I got there with their big design, and everybody was in the kitchen having their lunch in the back. It was a big, old, fabulous house, old Austin.
Hmm.
And so I walked through the kitchen to, place the flowers in the foyer. And everybody looked at me and they said, Mark wants to talk to you, the attorney. And I said, well, what's wrong? Did I do something wrong? Because I got the impression that there was something wrong.
Hmm.
So I put the flowers down and I went into the front to Mark's office. And he looked over at me and he said, you never told me you were the girl on the meat hook. And I just
That's
cracked
great.
up. I said, well, don't feel bad. I haven't told anybody I am.
Yeah.
So it
Well,
was pretty wild.
okay, so that's my next question for you. So, you disappeared. There was a time when the internet started ramping up, and I remember being a horror fan. Like, it was kind of neat. You could look up things and really look into your favorite films, and obviously Texas is one of my favorites. So, I would look up and I would see pictures of so and so or whatever, but you were MIA. I couldn't find you, and I looked. Just wanted to see a recent picture of you, just to see if what you were up to or whatever.
Yeah.
And you just disappeared, and I want to know why, and then what made you kind of surface.
Well, I had to take chainsaw off my resume. because it was so taboo.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah. So did Marilyn. So did Bill Vale.
Hmm.
It didn't do us much good. Now she got rehooked up with Toby,
Yeah.
and they did some things, and so they anyway. I went off to New York and I did some leg and foot modeling,
I
and
was going to ask you about that, by the way.
I did some leg and foot modeling, and I managed restaurants because when I got to New York, I was no longer in this um, oppressive situation.
Mhm.
Like in Texas, they are just, well, a woman, little woman, she
Yeah.
needs to be, they just didn't know what to do with women in the workplace. But in New York, they were like, hey, you want to manage? Because they could see I was,
Yeah.
I had some smarts. And
Mhm.
so immediately I got a job managing a cool restaurant a block from the Dakota where John and Yoko had lived, and where
Mhm.
Yoko lived. And she came in with Sean, her son, to this restaurant. And
Wow.
it was great because, one day Sam, what's his name? The wrote uh the Sam, he died. Um,
Uh,
Sam, playwright,
uh,
actor, was with Jessica Lange for 20 years.
oh,
Sam, you
oh,
know.
now you're putting me on the spot.
Anyway, he came
Yeah.
in. He came in. Different people, It was
Yeah.
Dustin Hoffman came in at
That's
8
good.
in the morning to get out of the snow with the patient. I mean,
That's
it was
neat.
just wild,
That's
So I
great.
did that. Then I did 4.5 years of New York, and I said, oh, I got to get out of here.
Hmm.
So I moved back to Dallas, actually, and I started catering for all the On the Borders. There were 6 of them in the Dallas area. So I
Mhm.
became their catering. They didn't know what to call me because they were such, good old boys.
Yeah.
They said, well, what can we call you, Terry? And I said, I don't know, catering impress, catering, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
They wanted to call me the catering directress.
Directress.
I mean, they're just, this place was wow. So I worked for them, made them $500,000 in profits
Wow.
because it was all the food was taken at off-peak times. And they were supposed to pay me commissions and they refused to pay me the commission. So I didn't want to burn a bridge.
Yeah.
I wanted out of there because they were also sexually harassing me constantly.
Oh, wow.
And so I just told them, hey, I'm going back to school. I'm going to move to Austin. I'm going back to school. Moved
Yeah.
to Austin, started running my flower business for 13 years.
Hmm.
And, had a lot of success with it. It was a lot of fun. I learned a lot. I screwed up a lot. I got a lot right.
Hmm. And
Um,
acting was done for you at this point?
well, it always lived in my mind, but
Yeah.
I had gotten tired of the racket,
Hmm.
and remember that for 10 years I waited tables in LA and took classes and studied and all kinds of things. And then I opened a flower stand, and that began to, it was always something, else for me.
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
did actors equity plays and had some success with that, but I never really had my compass anymore after, after a while. I just lost my compass. And
Yeah.
so that's what I was doing. I was just doing other things
Yeah.
and having a very full life
Hmm.
and
Hmm. That's great.
avoiding getting married as best I could.
If that's full for you, okay.
Every time somebody, seemed like they were getting too close, I was like, ooh, I got to get out of here.
Wow. Okay.
So I got out of there and, I came dangerously close.
You can't pin down the meat hook girl, I guess, right? That's what we're learning.
Oh, yeah. But, when they wanted me to come out, I said, what do they want to talk to me for? I mean, like I told you, I'd been beating myself up. And this guy told me, he said, Terry, your scenes are taught in directing classes across the world.
Wow.
Are you kidding me? And as
Yeah.
it turned out, the shot that I hated the worst, that I worried the most about because I my very religious mother and aunts would see me, you know, in the red shorts with the cheeks. Ba-dum, ba-dum, ba-dum.
Yeah. Off the
So
bench.
that kept me up nice. Now, I
Oh,
should have never worried, because guess what, Jason?
they,
Neither of them ever
I
saw
was
the
gonna say
film.
they didn't see that. I mean, if they're religious, they're not gonna see the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
No, they never saw the film. And also remember that by the time it finally started becoming famous
Yeah.
10 years later, I was way not an ingenue anymore, you know, and cable was just beginning at that
Mhm.
time.
Yeah.
So, you know, so I found other things.
Yeah.
If I couldn't just sit around, so I always started flower businesses.
Okay. That's your passion.
Yeah.
So, but then you just, when you decided to finally come out, was it just people were reaching out and you were just fed up and you're like, okay, fine, I'm gonna show my face, I'm gonna get out there and I'm gonna talk to people. Was that
Well,
it, or was it?
2007, Gunnar said, "Hey, this guy Richard Fleischman's going to come and talk to you, you know, because he really wants you to come out." And I said, "Oh God, I don't think so." And you know, I really got upset. I was managing hotels on Venice Beach, and I was, you know, making a real success of these little hotels. You know, keeping them completely rented out to capacity, and so. I was in the midst of doing that, and it was very challenging for me. And I was meeting people from all over Europe and around the world, you know,
Mhm.
and so it was really fun and yet very taxing, you know. So,
Yeah.
very, so it was 2007, and they're having a re-release cassette or whatever it was, a video,
Mhm.
and then I made the appointment, and I walked down to half a block to the beach where I was meeting this guy Richard in the restaurant, outdoor restaurant, and I I had thought about it, and I said, "Oh man, I just can't do this. I can't lose my anonymity, and I can't give up what I'm
Mhm.
doing right now." And I looked at him. I said, "Oh Richard, I feel so horrible. You know, gotten you all the way here, but I said, I just can't do this, you know,
Yeah.
I just can't do it." It was way beyond my capacity to
Mhm.
grasp losing my anonymity, you know. And year went by, and they were doing the Blu-ray release, and they again asked me. And by this time, um, the owner had really irritated the hell out of me. And so I thought, well, screw him, you know, I've got him making 100 grand a month, you know.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
so anyway, I decided somebody had Italians had stayed in the hotel, and you know, had people, like I said, from all over Europe. And this Italian guy said, "Teri, when you come to Italy, you must stay with us." And I'm sitting there on the adding machine and answering the phone, and you know, I said, "Yeah, Italy. When am I ever going to go to Italy?" You know, and then it set in, and I said, "Italy, Italy." Then I went to my first Monster Mania, signed 500 autographs.
Mm.
Bill and I came out at the same time, and and after a little while, after a day or so, I looked around at all the cast, and I said, "Hey, can we do this every weekend?" So that was the moment
That's
it
great.
took, you know.
Ah, well,
So
that's
okay,
great. And
I'm
at that
all in.
and at that time everybody was still around, and for the most part, so you
Mhm.
got to see everybody, which was that participated, which was great. It's, you know, it's unfortunate, like I think about some of the things you're saying about how you almost had to run from being in this film back in the day, and when you think about it now, I mean, if you were to be part of such a special film, you'd just be revered right from the get-go by a massive fan base, a horror community, and even just film people, because like, let's face it, I mean, Hollywood's all over horror these days, and it's
Oh,
unfortunate, right? But
and we would have been on the beach at the Indie Spirit Awards. Okay, let's just put this right into this, you know,
yeah,
that is where we would have been. you know?
Fair enough.
So timing is everything.
It
And
is.
it was ahead of its time.
Yeah.
It was way ahead of its time, and they had to cut out a lot of stuff, of course, to get
Yeah.
it past the censors, you know. But it's in the Museum of Modern Art,
Yeah.
AFI, and the Smithsonian Film Archives.
Yeah.
So
How
it's
amazing
the
is that?
only one of the franchise
Yeah.
in those, you know, and there's a reason. I'm
Yeah.
glad I was in this one. It's not, you know, it doesn't, like now I want to get that tracking shot of my butt in the red shorts up on a billboard on Sunset Boulevard.
Nice. I like it.
Why not,
Right?
Jason?
I agree. I'm
I
on board
mean,
with that
is there any
150%.
reason why not?
Nope, nope, not at all. And you did say, it was ahead of its time, and maybe it was, but I think it also came out at the perfect time for it to be what it is today. It's just magnificently 70s, and just a great, it really was responsible for inspiring a lot of films that came after it. So without its place when it came out, who
Mhm,
knows, right? Where we'd
mhm.
be if we'd even have
It
a
was
horse.
it was definitely the foundation of the genre. I mean,
Yeah.
definitely, you know, there are no ifs, ands, or buts. It's mentioned in so many different movies, commercials,
Yeah.
you know, just all it's mentioned everywhere. So,
Oh, for
and
sure.
it's really funny when I've had a especially painful day and I'm on with Medicare or with, you know, any of these people that are having to do all this, I'm going to say it, shit work, you know, that they don't
Mhm.
really want to be doing. At the end, if we've really gotten along, I'll say, okay, I'm going to give you the best giggle of your day. Have you ever heard of the movie, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
Oh,
And
cool.
then when I
That
tell them I'm the girl on the hook, they're like, oh my God.
yeah. Yeah, that's a bragging point. I mean, listen, you've got something, in the history of film that is yours, and you're there. You're imprinted in that industry forever. And that's something to be really, really proud of years later. And who knew, right? Who knew when you were reading that script that you didn't understand that,
Probably
that
my most repeated quoted phrase. Who knew?
who knew, right? Who
Who
knew?
knew? You know, nobody knew. You know, and if people tell you that they knew, they're lying to you
Yeah,
because
no.
no one knew. And so, yeah, I'm just grateful.
Yeah.
And you know, I never, like, I hear people going on about, you know, "Oh, it's so horrible." It's like, shut up, God, the whining. You
Right.
know,
Yeah.
you've got to do it, and it's really about attitude, you know, and that's a
Exactly.
choice.
Nope.
So
100%.
I
100%. I honestly, I am so happy to interview you and hear that kind of, like, that piece, and that you have for this film. Again, knowing that you'd been away for a while, and then you came to it, and on your terms, which is great. Like,
Mhm.
I can't thank you enough for giving back to fans, because it would have been really hard to see reunions, to see all these things happening, and pardon me for saying this, but the meat hook girl wasn't involved in any of it. It would have been a travesty. So I'm so thankful that you gave your fans something.
Yeah, and you know, I'm really glad it happened at really at the right time, because when you're running a business, I mean, they called me to come down and do some free PR in 1986 after never having apologized, by the way,
Mm,
for, you know, screwing me out of $3,600 that I could go and make.
yeah.
And so they asked me to come, and it was a Friday night, and I had a wedding the next morning. And if, if you don't know it, florists are up all night
Yeah.
before weddings many times.
I can
And
imagine.
I said to them, I said, I can't come and do a panel tonight. I'm doing flowers for a wedding. Come and help me do the flowers for a wedding. You know, shut up. Leave me alone. And I said, you know, I was no longer going to be the victim of exploitation, which they had exploited me, you know, and not been nice about it. So be careful how you treat people is what I would say.
Yeah.
Because that was part of what I just wasn't attracted by being around these people at that time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Fair enough.
I loved the cast was fine, but everything else around it had really affected me. If you're starving and you can't pay your rent, and somebody threatens you, and you're 21 years old, I was just a young girl,
Yeah,
and
it's not good.
it's exploitation. That's what it is,
Yeah.
So I told them, I wrote, Teri, no longer the victim of exploitation, will not be with you this evening, and I think they were pissed, and I don't care, Jason.
No, I guess not. I mean, at that point, but so
but anyway, I'm so glad it worked out this way.
Exactly. And I'm just saying, unlike Pam in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, for Teri, it's a happy ending, right?
Absolutely. In fact, Kim did something really generous and nice for me recently, Kim Hinkle. And I sent him a card and I said, it has been a long, circuitous route that I've taken with you. But I am so glad I did.
Great.
And
That's
thank
great.
you for being my friend,
That's
so
great.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Awesome.
I'm just every day I'm grateful. I don't take it for granted. However, I see people that treat their fans awfully, and I think to myself, ooh, that is just not nice.
Yeah, I know.
I really try and I always want them to feel comfortable.
Yeah. Well, I thank you so much for being on the Horror/Show today. It means a lot to me to talk to you, and I really enjoyed it. Some of the stories I never heard before, which is always a bonus. And all I want to do is wish you all the best in the future.
I appreciate your asking me.
Oh my gosh, it was a no-brainer. It was a no-brainer at all. I'm so thrilled. And like I said, thank you so much.
My pleasure. And you have a wonderful evening.
I got a new chair. It's pretty squeaky.
It's pretty squeaky.
Actually, I mean, I borrowed a new chair. I was gifted a new chair. New chair for me, old chair. But now I'm like, I wonder if they can hear this. I don't know.
You trying to make it annoying?
I'm just seeing what my limits are. You know, how much I can move.
I didn't hear a lot of squeaking. Do that again.
All right, cool.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think if that was what causes it to squeak, I think people would be more put off by your action than the sound coming.
I mean, they wouldn't be like, okay, let's talk about horror this week.
They would probably,
that wouldn't be what they're here for.
They would probably think that you were getting electrocuted or something like that, or
well, maybe.
Yeah. So I don't think the sound is the issue. That's the main thing.
All right, cool.
How's it going? All leopardy.
It's going great.
Yeah.
Well,
that's good.
Yeah. It's all good in the hood. All right.
What do you got for us today?
So this week, Variety has reported that Hammer Films has joined forces with Network Distributing to form Hammer Studios Limited, the latest evolution of the iconic British film production company. Hammer Studios Limited will restore classic horror films and make new ones. So all the Hammer stuff. Yes.
That's pretty.
Black Friday, Best Buy is slashing its 4K releases to $9.99, multiples of them, including Blade, Ghostbusters, Alien, and more. That's pretty dope.
That's good. Yeah. Some good shopping.
Recommendation. I added this to my list on Netflix. Hellbound, which is directed and written by Yeon Sang-ho of Train to Busan. The Korean Netflix show is about angels that appear to certain people and tell them when they will die and go to hell on a specific day and time. And it's been compared to, if anybody has liked Midnight Mass, they will like this one. And it currently holds 100% score on Rotten Tomatoes.
Wow.
So That seems pretty promising.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. This week,
Alright.
Bruce Campbell and Devon Sawa lead the cast of the brand new holiday horror comedy Black Friday.
Bruce.
So that's perfect for this upcoming week.
Yep.
And of course, Resident Evil Welcome to Raccoon City is also out. That's fun. Ghostbusters Afterlife blasts projections with a $60 million global opening.
Woo!
So pretty awesome for them. Pretty awesome for them. I still have not yet seen it.
Neither have I.
Because I'm waiting for my significant other. But yeah, I'm very much looking forward to
Me
it.
too.
Today I came across I after the first trailer, I like kind of tried to stay away from spoilers.
Yeah.
And I came across an article today. I wasn't necessarily surprised by it. It was just kind of like you think it's gonna happen, and then the article like gave it away.
Oh,
and
no. See, I don't got any of that yet.
Oh yeah, and it was on it was on Variety, and I think it was Variety, and they were like, in the article itself, there was a little paragraph that said, "Beware, if you have not seen it yet, there are spoilers below." However, the title and the header image totally gave it away. And I was like, oh man, I'm sure there's more in there. And I'm sure there's a reason. I did not read, but I clicked on it and was like, why? Why would you do that to me? Anyhow.
Well, that's kind of that kind of your reaction there kind of ties into a poll result that we're going to come to a little bit later, kind of a little bit of beef with that. But all right, cool. Sorry to hear about that. I've been pretty good at staying away from it. Some people I know that really love it saw it and they've been good to me, and that's all I can ask for being so slow on the draw.
Yeah. I mean, it's like you can't really go see a movie a weekend. People are so eager to talk about all the fun things ASAP that if you're not on it, like as soon as everybody else is, you might get a spoiler. Same with the Chucky TV series. I don't have cable, but I have the Sci-Fi app, and I would wait till like the next day to watch it. But then that night people would be live tweeting it, and I'd be like, okay, well, I guess I know what happens now. But I don't know if I could totally fault them. I guess it's just me having to stay off social media, but I just can't help myself. Speaking of Ghostbusters, there is a fun, so Josh Gad is the voice of the new Ghost Muncher in the Ghostbusters Afterlife, but there's another fun voice cameo. Ira Hayden revealed on the 80s slasher Librarian. Of course, Ira played Will on Dream Warriors. He has actually done some of the voices for the mini puffed characters.
Wow.
Versions of the classic Stay Puft in the movie.
Is he a voice actor?
So that's fun.
Or is it just a random coincidence?
His voice. Well, I did not know about his voice skills, but they got him in there. So that's
interesting.
Pretty darn cool. Ridley Scott, who of course made the 1979 horror sci-fi classic Alien, has some good news for fans this week. There is a planned FX adaptation of the iconic film that is going to be written into TV format. The pilot is being written, according to Scott, and plans call for the series to run from 8 to 10 hours. That likely means 8 to 10 hour long episodes, but that still remains to be confirmed. So Alien goodness coming up.
Wow, and he's no offense, but he's a pretty old dude. He keeps going. So
never checked, but he's been, I mean, he made Aliens and all those movies so long ago, and he's just been working. I've been like Ridley Scott, but for some reason in my mind he's like the same age.
Yeah, they always are. I know. Okay, so let's see. He is 83.
Oh my God, he's still working.
I know, to have the energy to direct or maybe not direct, but to be involved. Even,
it's like a lot of work.
It is
just for anybody. I mean, film sets and all that is no joke.
Yeah,
no joke.
No joke.
Wow. Don't talk about snow. I don't want to talk about snow, but I am going to talk about Christmas.
Okay, let's talk about jolly
Shudder will present Joe Bob Ruins Christmas next month on Friday, December 17th, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific.
That Joe Bob. It's going to ruin Christmas for everybody.
Another Korean bit of information. The 2016 Korean zombie thriller Train to Busan was a box office sensation. Everybody loved it. Friends at Friendsgiving over the weekend talked about it and were like, have you seen it, Diandra? I was like, it's on the top of my list for zombie movies. However, because I'm terrified of zombies, I've yet to watch it. But I will force myself. According to Deadline, there is a leaked new title for it, which is The Train to New York, where apparently the zombies take on the Big Apple for the American remake.
Wow.
Fine, America, you want to do it, fine, go do your stinking remake. Even though Korea has proven that its Korean pieces of filmmaking are very popular. Look at Squid Game, look at Hellbound. All I'm saying is, did we really need it? Whatever, America, you're just going to be second class again.
Well, if I can defend your country for a second, it's not like other countries don't steal from America. So.
That's true, India.
Yeah. I think there's a few. There's a few
Bollywood.
Yeah. So let's go easy on your homeland.
All right, fine, America.
See how nice Canadians are.
Yeah, you guys are so nice.
See, I'm looking out for you.
I mean, that's your thing. Thanks,
that's what
guys.
we do. That's what we do.
Yep. And last but not least, I have on here that Fangoria released its next cover, which is Ghostface ripping through a stab poster.
Yeah, it looks pretty cool. I saw
so that's pretty sweet. And I wonder what relation that has to the new film. I wonder if it's pretty symbolic about what's going to be in the new film, especially if it's stab featured with the ghost face coming through it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is there some kind of meta thing going on? Is it like...
Yeah.
I don't know.
Is that
maybe
like a
stab has reached like iconic level and it's like incorporated, matching like modern horror culture and like conventions and reunions and stuff? I don't know.
You might know this. Is that a Fangoria design or is it like what was given to them from the Scream people?
Son of a gun. I don't know. I didn't check that out.
Kind of curious about that because yeah.
Anyways,
it looks really cool. It looks fun. And yeah, looking forward to that.
Yes, me too. All right. So we've got our poll stuff from 2 weeks ago.
Oh my gosh. That's right. Oh,
all right.
Much has changed.
First up, Thanksgiving horror films. And even though now it's after Thanksgiving, it's just the day after Thanksgiving. So, you could still catch up over the weekend. Blood Rage from 1987 was the most mentioned horror movie for people to watch, even over Thanksgiving. Blood Rage Christie from 2014. Thanksgiving was on there. Derelicts on Tubi for free. Pilgrim, which I'd mentioned on Hulu. Black Friday, of course, as it is Black Friday with Bruce Campbell and Devon Sawa. Home Sweet Home from 1981. You're Next. And The Addams Family Values. Because how can we horror fans have some kind of Thanksgiving celebration without that screen count?
Wow. You got a lot. Yeah, you got
the match.
Good stuff. I like it. I mean, there's a couple on there that I gotta admit I haven't seen. So I'll have to get on that while I celebrate your Thanksgiving from way up north.
From our good friends up north.
Good
Texas Chainsaw Massacre or Hellraiser. So Twitter and Instagram both decided that it is Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah, just interviewed.
Twitter was 61.3% and Instagram was 67%.
Just interviewed Teri McMinn and she was awesome. And Texas Chainsaw Massacre cards. Now, I just want to say about these Texas Chainsaw Massacre cards, they're freaking awesome. Like I have like Nightmare on Elm Street ones, Friday the 13th ones, but the Texas ones, they're so cool. They look so 70s cool. And rustic and such a good design and stuff like that. So, okay, so Texas won.
Number 3 of 5. Are you a warm weather lover or a cool weather freak? I don't know what I expected. Both Twitter and Instagram came in with cool weather at 64%.
I called BS. I'm thinking that cool weather people probably wanted to pound their chest on this one and say cold. And the warm weather people probably thought, I'm not even going to play along.
So. Yeah, it's possible. People were like, I love Halloween, cold weather forever, darkness.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I'm not totally surprised by it, but I mean, I was a little bit. I guess I expected it to be a little closer, but whatever. Horror fans. Do you find death scenes in horror films sexy? On Twitter, 73.1% said no. On Instagram, 60% said no.
It's pretty good margins.
Very interesting.
Very good margins. Yeah. I'm actually a little surprised that not at the result, but the 70. When you're in the 70%, that's a massive.
Pretty high. Yeah. And the last one, do you enjoy watching or reading horror reviews? Twitter said yes at 66.7%. Instagram said yes at 83%. So people do enjoy watching them. Yeah, it's a big one. I was just curious to see what people thought, because it's just so popular for people to kind of give their opinion on things, and most people have an opinion. So
yeah,
I didn't know if they were like, I don't care about your opinion or whatnot, but hey, if you're out there doing movie reviews, people like them.
You know what bugs me is that, like, I mean, okay, I've talked about the spoiler thing, and everybody's so quick to get out there and and they don't care, and they're just like, well, don't watch it if you don't, and whatever. But what kind of has bugged me for a long time is people with large followings, giving their matter-of-fact opinions on things. That kind of irks me, I'm like, okay, just because you've got 57,000 followers and you like horror movies, just, I don't know, handle it with a grain of salt. Like, just at least say my opinion is, or I think this is, I find everybody's become a film critic, and everybody really, kind of buys into their opinions a little bit too much. And this is one of those times where I just feel like it's okay if someone asks me my opinion, I'll give it, but I'm pretty careful to say this is my opinion. I know I'm a grumpy horror fan, so I know I'm not going to like a lot, so take that for what it's worth.
Yeah,
I just find like everybody is like standing on their soapbox and saying I got my followers and this movie is the best because of this.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of people with very big followings, they kind of believe theirs is more, they probably see it as like my opinion, but like it's more toward fact because of their experience with horror and their following. I mean, I can't say for sure. It's so interesting to add the note about my opinion, because I've watched and read articles or people talking about, like being a woman at least. And then we'll say like, oh, well, I think, or I feel, or in my opinion, and they'll be like, don't do that. You just say your thing and that's, what you feel. And it should be a given that that's kind of your opinion.
Yeah.
Rather than just stating it, because then it makes your thoughts, whatever, seem weaker. Now, maybe in reviews, it's different. I think it really crosses the line when it's almost like a, well, I thought this, and this, and this, and then you attack everybody who kind of disagrees with it. However, I tend to attack people that are just like, well, that movie sucks, but like, oh, okay, well, why? And then they give it a reason, and I'm just like, or they just say, I don't know, it's just terrible. And it's like, why do you come in? Or if somebody's like really passionate about something, I don't know, it kind of, to me, if I see something that somebody really likes that I don't, I just kind of keep going. But then most people be like, I don't understand why you like that thing. I hated it, actually. I'm like, who gives a crap?
That's valid. I mean, I don't look at it as if like a female says, in my opinion, it's weaker. My personal opinion, I look at it as just like, if she says it's her opinion, whether it's him, whether it's her, it doesn't really matter. My thing is like, okay, if there is and we'll stay on females for a sec, but if there's a female that poses in leather bras all the time and is really voluptuous and sells the sexuality and has 100,000 followers, is her opinion like as valid as someone who has 88 followers, is a solid book reader of horror, studies film even, like, and is really just knowledgeable about that, but just doesn't look the part, right? So those are the things that kind of bug me. I'm like, I get it. You got the following and stuff like that. And you're entitled to review things for sure. Everybody does. Everybody's a critic in some way or another. I just hate when they're put on a pedestal and I'm like, I'm sorry, have you studied film? Do you know, like, are you aware? Do you read a lot of, like, you know, what it takes to, you know, construct a great story? Or is this just your opinion? And if it's just your opinion, that's fine, you know. But like, I mean, I'm kind of a little bit of a snob that way. Like, I went to film school, you know, I studied film history and all that kind of stuff. So it's things like that that kind of bug me, right? Like, you know, that you know, sweet girl that's in her room reading book on book and has a really educated opinion but has no audience. You know, I think that's just as valid, or sorry, more valid than, you know. But
it's definitely valid, because a lot of the girls who will post in their leather bralettes do really like horror. No, I mean, I don't post those particular types of pictures, but I do have fun with mine, and some of them can be sexy, but it's like I've been kind of discredited sometimes for being just like a girl who casually likes horror, which is obviously not the case.
You get that?
Yeah,
You
I
get
have.
that?
I've had people be, you're a poser.
I've had to
Yeah,
ask you
I
if you
have.
watch anything other than horror because you're so on top of everything. But see,
Yeah.
this, okay, but this is dealing with like just nonsense as well, right? Like, you know, and I don't want to discredit the leather wearing you know, female who does know her shit. You know, like, listen, I'm not, you know, but what I'm saying
Yeah.
is just sometimes we look at the followers and then
Yeah.
we make the judgment on whether this is a sound
Yeah.
opinion, or the
Yeah.
followers dictate what you think you can say to people, or, you know. But anyways, but I
Yeah.
can't.
Yeah, I mean, you really have to. I mean, everyone's opinion is just an opinion. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter if they have a lot of people or not. There are people out there with hundreds of thousands of followers who are pretty, you know, big horror fans, but I've disagreed with some of their opinions, or they'll be like a PhD or something, and I haven't necessarily agreed with their takes on things. And I can see where they come from, but at the same time, things are always open to interpretation, unless otherwise stated as fact and straightforward by the filmmaker. So I mean, it happens all the time, but I think people tend to get to their aid, or they tend to be like, I don't care what your opinion is, because look at how many followers you have compared to mine. It's like, no, honey, everyone's opinion is equal. It's all valid. Don't go sticking anybody on somebody else because they disagree, or because you like this movie and you came across this tweet that said they didn't like this movie, and so you've got to attack them and whatnot. It just does not compete. It doesn't make sense. It's not right.
Agreed.
So I agree.
And this an opinion is an opinion is an opinion. Like, I mean, I have a sommelier friend, and, you know, like, he says, he goes, if the $12 or the $9 bottle of wine tastes good to you, drink it. You know, it doesn't have to be, you know, $80 up, like, you know. So it's all a matter of opinion. I just anyways, I think we spent enough time on that crap. I just still can't believe people think you're a poser. I mean, I don't know.
It is what it is.
Who cares?
But in any case, let's talk about some of the poll ideas for this week.
All right.
Since there was Thanksgiving for us Americans, I was wondering if people like apple pie or pumpkin pie more, because it's a pretty fall thing between Halloween to like the month of December. Pie like that. I mean, it can go beyond that, but I feel like it's pretty. Those are pretty two fall choices. I'm just curious.
Okay, wait. I want to know what your take is on that.
I love apple pie, especially when it's hot and covered with ice cream. When I was a little kid, I was never a cake person, so my mom always gave me apple pie. So I love pie. But I've gotten better.
You've gotten better at liking cake?
Some cakes. Some cakes.
Well, thank goodness you got better.
My go-to was an ice cream cake, which doesn't necessarily count, and I don't necessarily go seeking cakes, but cakes have grown on me. Carrot cake, like cheesecake is different. It's not like the fluff cake, like the fluff cake. But I'll have cake, and I'll get hungry for it every so often, but I'm definitely more of a pie person. What about you? What do you prefer?
Well, cake or pie? Cake. I'm all cake all the time. And pie, your pie question, pumpkin.
That's fair.
And I like I'm a fussy selective eater. How I got trying pumpkin pie when I was a kid, I don't know, because it just doesn't sound like it's part of my DNA. But yeah, I love my pumpkin
Pumpkin's
pie.
good, man. I love pumpkin too, so it's
Yeah.
hard for me,
Yeah.
but I gotta go with my classic apple.
Apple
I just
pie.
love it, but I do love pumpkin pie. Someone's like, I brought a pumpkin pie. I'm like, I'm gonna eat this.
Yeah.
Shoot, I might get a slice of that before I have dinner. Like, I don't know. I don't know.
Decisions
Love
need
them
to be
both.
made.
Yes,
right.
this is my
Okay.
life depends on this. If you were in a horror film, would you much rather be the final girl, the killer, or the most memorable death?
Ooh,
Yeah.
that's my type of question right there. Let me ask you, if I was in a horror film, what would I be best at?
Dude, you'd be the killer. I mean, no offense, but you give off killer vibes here. It's not just because your name is Jason.
None taken.
But I feel like you'd be, or I mean, you could be the final girl if you want. Shoot, you could be the final girl that turns into the killer. You could be the Jill, the Jill Roberts of whatever horror franchise you're in. You're like, oh, I'm the final girl. Just kidding. I'm actually the killer.
Okay, I'll take killer. Why not? It's I'll probably get another gig in part 2, so I'll take that. It's all good. Is it the beard? By the way, should I be shaving this? I'm thinking it's getting a little...
Keep it going.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, keep it going. Start looking like ZZ Top.
Yeah.
Well, except for Frank Beard, because he actually doesn't have a beard. It's just in his name.
Okay, we'll see.
Yeah. And then I have this question, which is kind of related to the idea of polling like big people, or like big people weighing in on their opinions, or just kind of what people think. Because so like, what are your thoughts on influencers, like horror influencers rather, people, because they'll have them be a part of documentaries. I'm technically one.
Yes, you are.
I feel like people don't have the most positive outlook on them, and I don't necessarily like to be called an influencer, because I don't think I'm the kind of person that's like, you must do this, I've got such clout and I'm so important because I blah blah blah. I really hate that, and I don't want to be perceived that way. I just like to think that I'm a big weird horror fan.
Let me talk on it for you. You are an influencer. You've got the followers, and let's face it, I mean, a lot of people, like, sometimes followers is like the F word, but I mean, you've got a lot of followers. You post to the genre, like, I wouldn't say daily, but well, in your stories you do. Your all your posts are dedicated to that. You engage with horror fans. I would say you're an influencer. When I approached you to be part of the Women Who Effing Love Horror, and you accepted, I looked at it as cool. I got an influencer. So that's just my perspective, even before knowing you. So I would not sell you.
I always feel like, because it would be my dream to one day be asked to be in like a horror documentary, for somebody to want to interview me. Mostly, I mean, anything I could really weigh in on, but like especially A Nightmare on Elm Street, I would love to. People are like, why haven't they interviewed you? I'm like, and I'm like, if I had a blog or a vlog or a pod, like got back into ElmStreetRadio and did that, maybe that would then be the thing that would drive it. Because I feel like people usually need more than something. I remember when In Search of Darkness was doing, I think, the very first Kickstarter, and they mentioned that they would have influencers, and people were like, influencers, and other people have said things about just not horror influencers, but just influencers in general getting cast in like movies and things. Why are they doing this? There are actors who work so hard for it. And in my mind, it's always, attention follows, or money follows attention. So if that person has earned the attention, they will bring some of their audience to see that movie. And that's just kind of how it goes. That's why you get certain people involved. And it's one of the things you learn in marketing is you get big people on, because then they're more likely to promote the thing if you have that individual and whatnot. And I love what people can do now with the internet, because I think in many ways, even if people have a vlog or a blog, they're an influencer in some way, because they influence people by offering their perspectives and what they cover. But I just feel like it's also such a dirty word, and just people have this stigma, especially a lot of the horror fans that are like, I was thinking as I was driving in a roundabout, I was like, horror fans fall into several categories. I wonder how many there are. There's like blogger, podcaster, create something, has the mentality of a PhD like professor or something,
Yeah.
really goes intellectual and dives deep into horror. Then there's like casual, there's like a horror fan who just plain loves horror, who's just like, I loved horror, I'm gonna check this out, I really haven't done anything, I like it, I offer my perspective, but I just love horror, I don't really want to create anything, or I don't know what I'm going to create yet. And then there's like horror fan who hates things, who denies that horror has any political association, and then like gets all upset, and then they try to make horror badass. Like I was looking through the Shudder comments of the Boulet brothers Dracula, and people were like, why do you do this? Keep them away from our children. And I'm like, first of all, if you're watching horror, that's not necessarily the best thing for children, although I will not deny that to them, because I mean, look at how many children love horror movies from it, you know? It's just like those kinds of people who use it to be badass. I don't know. There's just a lot of that. But in any case, they typically are the ones who will hate.
Well, one thing
of an influencer.
One thing it sounds like you do that I don't is read comments. Like, I mean, I'll read comments on my own stuff, right? Yeah. But like, I mean, if someone posts, like, you know, if Shudder posts something, if Fangoria posts something, like a lot of times I just don't read it. I don't read the comments. I'll read what they wrote, like the blurb they wrote on the post. If it's something like, do you think I'm cool or a complete ass for posting this? I might scroll a few just to see what, ass, whatever. I don't know. But like, I don't really get into because there's just so many, there's so many idiots out there that actually just post things just to get the rise. They just post things to entice, just to hide, and, trolls, all that kind of stuff. And I know that's all in there. And I just avoid that because, man, it could get you really upset. And so I try to avoid that. Maybe you can do that too, and then you won't be as grumpy with
but I'm always wondering what people think. I think because I find it so interesting. But then you always, like, you could get somebody weighing in, or you just want to see people cheering something on, and then there'll be like those couple of comments will be like, this sucks.
Well, yeah, that's
stupid. And you're naturally like, oh no. Curious. Yeah,
you're a naturally curious person. There's nothing wrong with that, but you got to understand that when you're going in to read the opinions, that your opinion may not prevail. And some people are just like, whatever. And some people are like, no, this can't be. And then you get sucked in, or it ruins your day. Some people, it ruins their day. I know that if I read the wrong thing, it could ruin my day. So I try not to do that anymore. I used to, but if I do that all the time, then I'll never sleep again.
It's slightly easier to read it on other people's, but when you create something that you love and you put love into, and someone's you're different. Like, oh
yeah, no,
that's even worse. Yeah, that's even worse. Right. But just have to. I usually stay away from the comments as much as possible, but when I get curious, I do, and then I sometimes regret it.
Things on my I mean, listen, I don't get like thousands upon thousands of comments on my posts, so I mean, I have the time to read the 6 that come through, and I mean, I'm pretty, I haven't really had haters. I'm always like, you're no one until you have a couple of haters and hecklers, right? Like, and getting back to you with the influencer, I think, an influencer is defined by someone who moves the needle one way or the other. You're moving the needle. And I think a lot of the negative response to influencers, funny enough, is from shows like The Bachelor. There's a lot of like people that just go on that show and just nestle into their online career, and that I think is really, that one show I believe has, not just that show, but that really rises to the forefront in my argument that of why they're hated so much, why these people are disliked so much, is because of that. It's like, who are you? What are you doing? Why are you where you're at? Just because you've got abs, just because, you're a rotten person on a popular show, and that is, I think, what, where influencer could get a little bit jumbled, because there's a lot of influencers that work really hard and have put in the time and have put in the effort, and they shouldn't be discredited. But then there's people that just kind of walk into it because they've got blue eyes, blonde hair, and, big boobs or washboard abs. Right. So anyways.
Yeah.
Wake up.
But those are
I'm
the
done.
three poll ideas that I have. So,
all right.
What else is on your list?
Well, we're nearing Christmas and we don't have a lot of shows left. So I want to throw in a couple of Christmas ones.
All right.
You okay with that?
Oh, yeah.
Boss? Okay. So I want to know if our audience thinks Die Hard is a Christmas movie or not. This is a long-standing debate in many circles of life. There's flat worlders, flat earthers, and and this is right up there. This is one of the big debates that is polarized, legions of movie viewers. So I want to do that one. And I think I want to do another Christmas one. What about like best Christmas horror film?
Yeah.
I mean, it's vague. I mean, we could make it more specific.
We could do like Silent Night, Deadly Night, or Black Christmas.
I don't think Black Christmas would lose. Do you?
You don't think so?
I don't think so.
Maybe not.
I think it's pretty loved. It's beloved. Like I
What if we did like Krampus?
I love
versus something. I love Krampus.
How about this? Okay, well, I was going to say Krampus versus Gremlins, but I don't think Krampus would stand a chance just based on the legacy of Gremlins, but they're kind of like the same ilk, You think Gremlins is a Christmas film?
I think if it takes Christmas, if it takes place on or around Christmas and that somehow works its way into the plot, I think it technically counts. It can count as that time of year kind of film.
I agree. Okay, we agree. Okay, how about this? How about we put the options there? Krampus, Gremlins, Silent Night, Deadly Night, and Black Christmas. I think those are four solid films, and they're all, two are lighter than the others. And okay, so we got that.
Yeah.
I'm happy.
All right, sounds good.
Sounds good. So we're done.
Okay.
We're okay. It's dinner time. All right. So we are finished with this one. We're going to be meeting up for a Christmas episode very shortly. So that should be fun. I love Christmas, as I know you do too. And
oh yeah,
I squeeze in a lot of horror films, and now again with streaming again, there's just seems to be so many horror Christmas films that I haven't seen. So many bad ones, but that's not always bad. So I'm looking forward to the season. The season of giving.
Tis the season to be merry.
Mary and Barry.
And Barry.
Huh?
And Sherry.
Well, no, Barry.
Also
like
Jerry.
Barry Bodies. Mary and Barry.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
That's a film. Totally. That's a film tagline somewhere.
'Tis the season to be buried.
Exactly. A Christmas Undertaker.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Ho ho.
Anyways,
whoa.
I'm way off now. All right. Well, thank you so much, Sassy Sledgehammer, for your contributions. Are you shaking your head? What, did I say something inappropriate? I didn't get inappropriate again, did I?
It's just my natural reaction.
I know. I get that a lot. Teachers, parents. Oh. No.
Darn it. Okay.
Dud. It's a dud. It's a good chair. It's a good chair. You failed.
Big old squeaker.
Chair is a success. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Horror Slash. Thanks to Teri McMinn of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre for an awesome, insightful interview. thank you, Sassy Sledgehammer. I know we kind of got off on some tangents and stuff like that, but that's what people pay to see. They pay to see this.
Man, they pay to see tangerines.
Exactly. So anyways, we'll talk to you soon. So long.